Hello and welcome to Telegraph Studio and Business Reporter's Future of Insurance campaign, hosted by the Telegraph Online. I'm Alistair Greener and today we're talking to Alistair Swift from Willis Towers Watson about the biggest challenges facing the insurance industry today. Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, of course, we live in a rapidly changing world. When we look at technology, we look at the environment, we look at everything around us. It's changing so fast, yet the insurance industry has been around a long, long time. So how is it coping and how is it dealing with all of the changes that are taking place?
I think that the fascinating thing with the change is it's actually just creating a rapidly evolving risk landscape. And what we're having to do is make sure that we adapt to that changing risk landscape. But it's not just technology, it's also what is happening from the perspective of what we do with data, globalization, and actually how we manage talent and the millennial workforce as it goes forward.
So let's talk about that, the data, globalization and the millennials. Which of those are a challenge and which are an opportunity for the insurance industry?
I think at the end of the day, they all produce great opportunities, but also bring with them inherent risks. And the key is going to be how you take advantage of those opportunities and manage the risks as you go forward. And those companies that do that well are going to succeed and grow massively. And those that don't, frankly, will wither and die.
And what about data? Is it good to have more data or less data?
It's not necessarily about the quantum, it's about what you do with it and how you manage it. And that's going to be the key as you go forward, because data itself can cause you huge vulnerability, can cause you risk, but it can also be of huge benefit if you manage it in the right fashion.
And then, of course, you talked about globalization. So what impact has that had on the industry?
Well, there's no doubt, if you look in the last sort of 15 years, global trade has increased something in the region of about fivefold in that period of time. With that has come huge geopolitical uncertainty. And with the advent of things like the terrorist threat, massive migration of employees, there's no doubt in our mind that you're going to have to manage that process, manage the risks that are inherent with it. Otherwise, you've got the potential for your supply chain to be seriously interrupted in some fashion, causing you financial loss.
You talked there a lot about the challenges and opportunities, and it would almost imply that the change is so vast that insurance brokers actually have to change themselves fundamentally. Is that the case?
I'm not sure we have to change fundamentally, but it's probably not revolution, it's probably more evolution of what we look at doing. And we're going to have to look at how we manage data, or how we help our clients manage data through that process and the risks that are inherent with that. We're going to have to look with them on how our imprint from a global perspective can also help and align with our clients as they look to expand on a global basis. And furthermore, how we couple not just the physical asset risk, but also with the management of people risk as we go forward. So we manage the talent management issues that clients are going to have as their businesses develop and grow on a global basis.
Let's talk about Willis Towers Watson. What exactly do you do? How do you help?
So our job mainly is to really help clients actually understand the risks that they've got. And what we want to try and do is help them focus in on the risks that they have, look and help them to manage those and mitigate them wherever possible. And when we think of something like globalization and geopolitical uncertainty as far as our clients are concerned, what we look for there is to build potentially sort of software solutions that can give them an advanced piece of knowledge before they even invest in a company. So we have a piece of software called Vapor, which we've developed with Oxford Analytica, which will actually give a client a forward-looking view on what the political situation is in a country before they even invest in that particular country. If we think of data, it again comes down to helping clients actually assess the vulnerability of their data security. Not necessarily just the threats and risks, that's important, but really thinking from a data security perspective, how do you assess the vulnerability that you have in your data security management?
The other thing you talked about there was the millennials. And so how are the millennials different from any other demographic?
I think bluntly, it's in their attitude and behaviours. And with talent management and the millennials, it's very much about thinking about how do you actually take the risk out of that? How do you manage those attitudes and behaviours that we first talked about? Is it through employee surveys, which we can help with? Is it through psychometric testing that we bring in? I mean, if you think that most cyber attacks that happen to companies, 2 out of every 3 of them is generated by human error. You need to make sure that you're managing that talent very, very carefully as you go forward.
And as you manage that talent carefully going forward, you're dealing with tremendous change. So let's actually fast forward a little bit and look at all the things we've been talking about. Where do you see it all going? What are the sort of trends that we should be looking at over the next, say, 5 years or so?
I think if you look at it over the 5 years, I think it's going to be fascinating. I mean, we've seen a huge amount of change in the last 20 years. I can only see that accelerating over the next 5 years. You could get to a point very, very soon where how a company manages its data security is actually going to start affecting its cost of capital and therefore the performance of that company as it goes forward. You look at the geopolitical situation, think of what's happening today with Brexit as we speak, what potentially could happen with the European elections next year, what could happen in the US later this year. You know, there is a huge amount of political uncertainty, and I think in our mind, we're in a period of time where, you know, from a political perspective, that is only going to continue to change, and there'll be further regulatory enhancements put in by geographies across the globe. Helping clients manage that as a company is going to be very, very important. And the millennials aren't going away. At the end of the day, there will be another generation that comes through in the next 5 years. They're going to have different needs to the millennials today, and we're going to have to help manage those, and they will be different again. If you think of what is happening with robotics, you know, we're going to have to start segmenting jobs, segmenting roles. How do you manage that as an organization? How do you deal with potentially the strikes that could happen as a result of that as you move jobs and roles away from people and they become more and more automated? And I think that uncertainty, that continued change and continued risk environment is something that companies are going to have to deal with. And we as brokers are going to have to make sure that we're agile enough to help our clients through those risks and managing those risks.
Some very interesting times ahead. Thank you so much for giving some clarity to the way that the insurance industry has to adapt to this ever-changing world. Alistair Swift from Willis Towers Watson, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.